All right, Proverbs chapter what? Lolly, what was our homework? All right, Proverbs chapter 15, verse 1. Everybody should have that one memorized. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Right? You should memorize that one. You know, there is a difference between memorizing one and practicing it, right? Does anyone find this one to be a difficult one? A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Rhonda, thank you for your honesty. I think it's true for the rest of us too, is that this one is difficult. Because when someone some way says something that insults you or whatever, our initial response is to what? Yeah, insult them back, maybe just a little bit better, right? And so, we have this natural fleshly tendency to strike back. And what does that do to the situation? If someone, a good situation is what we were talking about, Shauna, just a minute ago. What did the bus driver... Okay, let me set up the scenario. So, it should all remain anonymous, but just imagine this scenario playing out. And as a fellow bus driver when I was in college, I can understand a lot of the bus driver thingies. And especially if you happen to have entitled children with parents who are always running interference for their children's poor behavior. I can totally relate. So there was this school bus driver, who had to administer some discipline on a child because the child was misbehaving in the back of the bus. They were required to sit in the front of the bus. And so the mother took exception to that and began screaming. I understand screaming is a proper adjective. Screaming at the bus driver in public in front of all the other kids that were on the bus. But what I didn't ask was, how did the bus driver respond to her? Do you know?
Got on the radio, was like, I need assistance. I have an irate teacher, and he didn't say a word to her.
Okay, he didn't say anything to her.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he didn't engage her in trying to...
The only thing he was saying is, my decision. I wanted to put her there because, he was just trying to explain to her. And he wasn't yelling back at her, and, because he's thinking about the kids.
Okay.
Job.
Yeah.
And just let her act cool.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, all the kids had to experience that as well. And what do you think that daughter is going to be more inclined to do in the future? Submit to the authority, who is the bus driver, or feel like the rules don't apply to me? Well, we talked about this last week. And so, you have a child who does not submit to authority. The bus driver did not make an unusually harsh demand. Instead of sitting in the back, you're sitting in the front. And she would not submit to that, and the parent came alongside in supporting her rebellion in this. So what do you think? Pretty obvious. And you just think about that going on into the future, what is being set up for this young lady and how she's going to fit within society, and not to mention this parent's example to the rest of the children on the bus. So let's take it now to, because that was last week's lessons, right? We really looked a lot at that in Proverbs, and there's so many places that talks about that and about children and their submission to the parent and the parent's authority over the child. And loving discipline is good for a kid. I didn't enjoy it when I was a kid, did you? Doesn't matter if we enjoy it. It's good for us. Discipline is good for us. As a matter of fact, it even talks about God and his discipline for us. And no one really enjoys it while they're going through it. But in fact, it does bring you to the place that God wants you to be. So that was last week's lesson. Now let's transition to chapter 15, verse 1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Take it to this scenario. where this bus driver, and by the way, it's interesting, it's a guy, because, because typically men feel like they can dominate over women, and you got this woman, chewing him out unrighteously, because he has the authority to tell people, you're sitting here, you're sitting there. How could he have responded to this woman? He could have met her shouting and maybe shouted a little louder, right? What would possibly be the outcome had he, instead of been silent or given a gentle answer and dealt with it? What if he had chose to do the opposite? What would possibly have happened? Huh? He could have lost his job. Exactly. What else could have happened? I mean, if he engaged her in screaming, with her screaming, what do you think? All of a sudden she would have said, "Oh yes, golly, I'm sorry, I'll be quiet." Do you think she would have done that? What would have happened? She would have got louder. We call that escalation. And then she gets louder, then what's he going to do? Get louder to eventually what could happen? Huh? He could punch her right in the face, or vice versa. And so the situation get worse and worse and worse. So a gentle answer can turn away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. You can be pretty sure that if you match fire with fire, it's just going to get hotter until something's going to go crazy. But have you ever been in a situation like that where instead of shouting back, you used the gentle answer, and it actually did diffuse the situation, that it deflated, it took the pressure out? Have you ever practiced this? Anybody want to share a situation? Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Hmm. Yeah. Oh boy. Okay, maybe another proverb will cover that one when we get to it. But anyhow, it can work. Now this is a perfect example of a proverb that speaks in generalities. Because let me ask you a question. Let's say someone is screaming at you, and you do give them a gentle answer. Is there any guarantee that they will stop being angry? No. See, this is a great example of the nature of Proverbs. And they're general truths. They're not absolute truths. An absolute truth would be Jesus is the Son of God. This is a general truth. That generally speaking, that if you don't match fire with fire, but instead give a gentle answer, there's a possibility then that it will cause the situation to come down. A husband-wife relationship situation, for instance. If your spouse says something to you, and if you give a harsh answer, there's a pretty good chance your argument's going to escalate. But should you instead follow this proverb and give a gentle answer, there's probably a high probability that it will de-escalate. Okay, so this is a great example of the general nature of Proverbs, and I just encourage you to try it. Now, it takes a great deal of faith. It takes a great deal of security in who you are and in humility, because we all struggle with pride, every single one of us, to different levels. But pride's what keeps us from giving a gentle answer when someone is clearly being a dork. You know, who knows? Maybe you're the dork. Who knows? But isn't that true? It's hard. The more pride we have, the more we think of ourselves, the harder it is to give a gentle answer. But generally speaking, a harsh word, you can be sure it's going to escalate the situation. Okay? Practice it. Come back and tell your stories about it. It doesn't take too long before someone has done us wrong, has insulted us, and you have an opportunity to practice a gentle answer. And I hope someone will come back and testify about a situation where you actually practiced this and it did turn away the wrath of whoever it was. Okay? All right, the other thing is, let's see, we're at 15. Another one I wanted to get. Oh, yeah, verse 3. Okay, I want to hear your guys' answer on this, and crickets won't work. I'll sit here and just drink my tea and get another cookie out if that's all it takes. But this is a good one here. Because the proverb writer says, the eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good. All right, I've got that one underlined, and I recognize the ink. I've got different ink, and different ink in this Bible tells me different periods of my life. This is very early on. This is this old-timey wide blue marker I used back in the late 80s. Now, yeah, the middle 80s. Anyhow, so I want to hear what you think about this Bible passage right here. This passage that says the eyes of the Lord are everywhere. Everywhere. There are no places that God does not see. He's keeping watch on the good and the bad, the wicked and the godly. Now, I got a whole sermon I could preach right now and take us to noon on this passage alone. But I'm going to try my best to keep my mouth closed until I hear from you on this passage right here. Caution and comfort. Okay. Yeah, Doug, you know I love it when I hear alliteration, and it's so memorable. Caution and a comfort. Okay, and you like that. Why do you like that?
Because if I don't know, maybe it'd make me second guess to not do evil,
Caution.
pushing out anger and it's like, oh, I'm
Being watched,
being watched.
okay.
Knowing that, doing good things.
Okay, caution and comfort. Other thoughts? And I'm going to hear from everybody on this one. Everyone, so. Like the Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd. Very good. Anybody else? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So he's watching over me not only as a comforter, but you're saying a protector. Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Somebody else before I start calling on names. God's eye is there watching you, Lolly. Mm-hmm. Haley, how about you? God was watching you when you're driving to church this morning. You know that, right? We don't know what happened between there and here, but He does. That time when you're all by yourself, Ryan, God was watching. How does that make you feel? Wonderful. He's got to say that. Otherwise, if he says, oh my goodness, did he really? We know that you're up to no good, right? So, come on, Kimberly, what do you think about that? The eyes of the Lord are everywhere. He's been watching all, and this ain't no Santa Claus, okay? This is God. And he knows whether you've been naughty or nice. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Jimmy, how about you? How's it make you feel? Mm-hmm. All right. Does anybody know why I'm pushing on this passage? Why I think it's so interesting? What does this passage really provoke? What does it do? I think it's pretty obvious what it's doing. Takes an inventory of yourself. Does it not also take an inventory of how you view God? Why is God watching you, Donna? Why is he watching? Why are his eyes everywhere? What is his motive as he is looking and seeing everything everywhere? See, so this will force us to say, how do we view God? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
It kind of reminds me of a parent trying to watch your child. I try to have eyes on my kids all the time, so I know they're making, hoping that they're making the right choices, and then guiding them to the right choices if I see them faltering.
What a great example you're bringing out where I'm trying to go with this, because I'm going to give you a negative example. All right? You're watching over your kids because of the things we talked about. You care about them. You love them. You want to protect them. You want to nurture them. Right? You want to keep them from getting harmed and that kind of thing. Okay. So try to imagine me. I'm a third grader. And I go to this particular school in Jackson where they have these ladies that look like penguins. That's what we call them in our school. And do you know what I'm talking about? The flying nun lady, And so they marched us us boys into the restroom. And their eyes were everywhere. They were watching us. So they marched in with us. And one of the nuns monitored the urinal guys. And another nun watched the boys in the stalls. The eyes were everywhere. Do you think it was because they were protecting us? They were caring about us? They were loving? No. They were looking for an opportunity to take a ruler and swat our knuckles when one of us decided to play swords or something, Oh, that's a guy thing. Sorry, you gals may not relate to that, but anyhow. So there are some people when they read this passage and they think the eyes of the Lord are everywhere. It's like, oh. Because they see God as this big policeman or this big Catholic nun that can't wait to smack you, right? Is that how you see God? He's looking for your faults? Or is he like the loving parent who really cares about us and doesn't want us to get hurt? Or is he also like a policeman? Because it talks about not just the good, but also the wicked. He sees everything. Nothing escapes his attention. But to me, this passage is fabulous as whoever, if I can just keep my mouth closed, if I can hear people think about this passage and talk about it, they will reveal how they see God. You know, because when I was a little kid, I was looking to get away with things, and I didn't want people to be knowing what I was doing every moment because I was up to shenanigans, you know. And so this passage reveals how we feel about God. The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good. And so it tells a lot about our view of God. Our theology is brought out of this passage. So why do you think, in fact, the proverb writer put it here? How does the proverb writer here feel about God? I'm pretty sure that this writer had a healthy view of God, a balanced view of God. And God is very much like a mother figure, which is kind of funny because sometimes people feel only because the father terminology is used does not mean he doesn't have motherly qualities. He does, and then we can look at some passages that refer to that God is like a mother hen gathering his chicks around him and on and on. So he has that nurturing, that caring part, but he is also totally just. And so have no fear that some injustice is going to get away with. God sees it all. He knows the truth. He knows what's right and what's not right in a situation. And there have been many injustices done throughout the age, and we think, oh, that person got away with it. No one gets away with anything. Because God's love is absolutely perfect. His provision is absolutely perfect. But make no mistake about it, his righteousness and his justice is also absolutely perfect. Okay? It doesn't escape his attention. No one's getting away with anything here. No one. And you know what amazes me? I'll give you a scenario, and it doesn't apply to anybody at New Song, but I'm sure. But there are some people when they're on vacation, they're not in this area, they act differently. Like God doesn't see what's going on over there, you know? It's just amazing. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He knows how much you love him over there or over here. And so the eyes of the Lord are everywhere. But there have been many a preacher who's taken this and used this passage to really make the parishioners set on edge and see God as only the one who's looking to evoke punishment on you. Kind of like that big evil eye looking down on you, just looking for an opportunity to give you a smack. No, that's not our God. That's not it. Yes, Don. Mm-hmm.
That was a means to a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He used the Babylonians to spank the Israelites. Yeah.
Right,
to evoke discipline, and then he went and disciplined them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But God's righteousness is absolute. His justice is perfect. And that's important for us to know too.
He's seeing the evil and using that for the good in that respect.
Absolutely. He used Pharaoh to accomplish his purposes, which is an excellent point. God can use evil people to accomplish his ultimate purposes. Yeah. I was going to ask, and I forgot. Lolly, your Proverbs 15:3 in the New Living Translation, does it read much differently? Okay. Vera, how about your CEV? What is that? Okay, so it all reads pretty much the same. Yeah. All righty. So it does help us, and hopefully you'll go back to this passage again and you'll think more about your God. Jehovah God, and what it means when He is omniscient. He knows everything. He's omnipresent. He is everywhere. There is no place that God is not. I know that in the past I've heard preachers and sermons say, I don't know what, pick whatever behavior, whether it's a TV program you're watching, an event that you're at, or something that you're doing. Imagine your mama sitting right next to you. Well, in this one little girl's case, it doesn't really apply, does it? But we're assuming you got a mama who really is right, raising you correctly, but and is a good mama. How would
98% of the time, when something like that happens, we get 100% backup from the parents, and they're like, thank you for letting me know we can handle this
at home? Yeah, 98% of the time. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, imagine if your mama was sitting next to you, would you be engaged in whatever activity it is? And so there is some benefit in helping us stay on the straight and narrow when we realize God knows what's going on. Don't try to live in the shadows, because He's everywhere and perfectly loving, but also perfectly just too. Okay, verse 4. The tongue that brings healing is a tree of life. I love this passage. But a deceitful tongue crushes the spirit. The tongue that brings healing is a tree of life. And so we think of the tree of life, we think of the Garden of Eden, we think about blessing, and there is so much good that can be done with our words. So much good and so much destruction. And as we've seen, we're just a little over halfway through, or about halfway through Proverbs, and see how much Proverbs talks about our speech and the things that we say and how we say them, and they can bring life, or you can crush the spirit. And I love talking with high school kids and letting them know that, there's so much good you can do by encouraging others, especially those who are kind of on the outskirts and those who are being bullied and whatnot, that you can really bring some encouragement. But it's a tongue that brings healing is a tree of life, where you're working on reconciliation, where you're trying to bring peace. But when someone lies and is deceitful, and it crushes the spirit. 15 and verse 8. The Lord detests the sacrifice of the wicked, but the prayer of the upright pleases Him. Now you'll find in chapter 15 a couple more passages that relate to this. Chapter 15, 9. The Lord is far from the wicked, but He hears the prayer of the righteous. And then 15, I think 26. The Lord detests the thoughts of the wicked, but those of the pure are pleasing to Him. Yeah, there are a lot of different places. I think chapter 28 and verse 29, there's one over there too. Let me go to it. When the wicked rise to power, people go into hiding. But when the wicked perish, the righteous thrive. And so this whole idea of the wicked versus the righteous, and God hearing their prayers and God not hearing their prayers, and we'll see that in John chapter 9, where people are wondering whether this Jesus is really from God, and so on. So, yeah. Verse 11, death and destruction lie open before the Lord. How much more the hearts of men? Ties in a little bit, really, with verse 3. Verse 13, a happy heart makes the face cheerful, but a heartache crushes the spirit. Verse 16, better a little with the fear of the Lord than great wealth with turmoil. We all think we want to win the lottery, right? Want to win the lottery. I don't think if we really knew what your life might be after you win the lottery that you'd really want it. I know that's a hard sell, isn't it? But better a little with fear of the Lord than great wealth with turmoil. And it's really this proverb is kind of making the suggestion, and one that is very real. When people end up with so much, what do they begin to do? Forget God. In Germany, when I was stationed there, we called it the land of too much. It was very hard for people to feel like they had a need for God because they had everything. They had more than everything. And so the proverb writer says it'd be better for you to be a pauper, to have no material goods, but fear, respect, revere God, than have great wealth, because with great wealth comes great turmoil. One way or another, you're going to have turmoil. What would be the first thing that would happen? Let's say you won, what was the latest amount on the latest Powerball? It was like $500 million, I think. It was up near as that. But let's just say you won the lottery and you had now all of a sudden $400 million. Do you think your life would now become more peaceful? What would be one of the first things that happened when you won $400 million? You get lots of what? Put that in quotation marks, friends, right? Also, what else? Not just friends, but you discover a whole lot of family. It's like, really? We're related. I didn't even know it, Never met you before. What'd you say, Bruiser? Oh, okay. Yeah, all of a sudden, all these friends and family. And how would they arrive? With their hand out, yeah. You guys have seen the movie Secondhand Lions? Right? Secondhand Lions? Have you not seen that movie? That was a great movie. And so these two old guys that were very, very rumored to be enormously wealthy. And so they had these distant relatives constantly trying to come and get the money. Nothing but turmoil. Think about all the different organizations that be hounding you now for this money. And now you've got all this money. What do you do with it, James? What do you do? What would you do with $400 million? Name something. You can throw it everywhere. Huh? Pay off your debts. $400 million. I'd probably pay off a couple of my credit cards. Pay the IRS. And how about buy a new toy? See, what happens is, he's so right, that there's so much turmoil. Your life would now churn up. It'd be a lot faster, and there'd be so much more stuff to take care of. And better just a little bit with fear of the Lord. Now, to me, and I'm going to tell you what I think, and I think it's true. It takes a special gift to have that kind of money and still be at peace and still be right with God. I think it takes a special gift, and I think it takes godly training, and because it will change people. Jesus. What was one topic Jesus talked about more than any other topics combined? Money. And things associated with money. Because he knew it was the one power that could separate us from God. I mean, the one idol that could come between us and God. He talked about this more than love. More than prayer. Because of the dangers. And then the gospel writer, the New Testament writers, specifically Paul, he talked a lot about the dangers of wealth and what it can do. Yes, Kimberly. It would be an amazing thing. What I say? Make it out to New Song. Our address is 5211 South Occidental.
What about the eyes of the Lord on the person when they bought that ticket at the gas station?
Take it up with God and them. That's not me. That's one of those things where we years ago we had a bottle drive, And someone said, oh, we can't take these bottles because we found them on the road, and that's where there were beer bottles and stuff. I said, we didn't drink that beer. That's 10 cents. Cash them in. I mean, are you serious? Yes, I'd take it. It's just money. Money's neutral. You realize that? Money's neutral. It's what we do with it that taints it. And so whether they get credit with God on that or not, that's between them and God. It is. You realize it's just neutral. It's just a tool. Matter of fact, I like to compare money to manure. I think there's a great comparison between money and manure. Manure, when it's stacked up, it gets stinky, it gets yucky. What do you need to do? When you spread it and it is a fertilizer, it can grow and it can be beneficial, but you need to spread it. That's why I will never be a millionaire. Poor Vera May, she's like, oh. I said, we'll never have a lot of money, and she'll tell you what's the first thing I would do when I get a bunch of money. Give it away. Give it away as fast as you can. You know? We don't need all that money. Give it away. Give it much as away as you can. So, so better a little with fear of, and by the way, is it wrong to be wealthy? No, Abraham was one of the wealthiest dudes around. But I think it takes a special gift, you have to have a very strong faith because money can change you. I like the one guy's answer when they said, we like playing this game. What would you do if all of a sudden you had 10 million? We were just doing it. And everybody likes to play this little fantasy game. But one guy was very realistic when the person said, what would you do if we gave you 10 million? He said, probably go straight to hell. And they go, what? And I said, yeah. I mean, I think that'd probably change me. I mean, if you really think about it, what that would do, it would change your entire world. It can. It has potential. It doesn't have to. But most people, when all of a sudden endowed with a ton of dough, oh, it can make a whole different you. It can really change your life. So this proverb writer is telling us that. In verse 17, I finish and then we're done. Better a meal of vegetables where there is love than a fattened calf with hatred. Okay? So, wise proverbs. Wise proverbs think about our relationship to wealth and material goods. All right, great discussion today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.